CSIT 165, Module 5. As we move through practicing R basics to interact and manipulate data, we are recurrently met with the challenge of structuring data in a way that lends itself to analysis and visualization. In this module, we will work with the foundations of data storage, which is comprised of vectors and lists. We will learn how R stores information in vectors, how operations are executed in vectorized form, and how to extract data from vectors. Lists are foundational in R as they are used to create data frames, the primary data store type used for working with real data in R. We will learn how to store data in lists, how this container differs from vectors, how to access elements of lists, and how to apply functions to lists. The objectives of this module is to implement the environment, compose an R program, develop solutions to acquire, wrangle, and analyze data. Our student learning outcomes are knowledge of the R environment, understanding how to use and manipulate data structures used in R. For this week, we'll have several tasks. The first task, as always, is to read. The assigned reading for this week is Programming Skills for Data Science, Chapters 7 and Chapters 8. Chapter 7 is about vectors. Within this chapter, we'll learn about what vectors are. Vectors are one-dimensional collections of values stored in a single variable. Each value within that vector is called an element. R treats everything as a vector. Something that might seem like a scalar value to you, such as b equals 4, is actually storing 4 as a vector of length 1. In this chapter, we'll learn how to create vectors using the C function, which will return a vector. We'll learn how to index vectors. We'll learn vector operations, or element-wise operations. We'll learn how recycling is occurring and when this occurs, when vector operations are done on vectors of different sizes. We'll also learn vector operations like plus or minus are possible with other functions too. Vector filtering using a vector of Boolean variables. We'll learn how to modify vectors. And then once we move into chapter 8, lists, we'll learn about lists as well. Lists are similar to vectors, but store more than one mode. That is, more than one different data type. Lists are also used, as discussed earlier, to create data frames. Within chapter 8, we'll learn several things. One of those things is that elements can be tagged with names for more intuitive element accessibility within the list, and this is going to be great for moving into data frames. This element accessibility from tagged names is called a mapping. Using mapping for lists is highly suggested, and it's not suggested to create lists that do not have names. Otherwise, that's very similar to a vector as far as the way that data is stored, except that it's stored with more than one different type of variable type. We'll also learn how to create lists. We'll learn how to access elements using the $sign notation for named or tagged variables within lists. We'll learn how to filter using single bracket notation. And we'll also learn how to access elements within lists using the double bracket notation as well. Finally, in chapter 8, we'll learn the vectorized operations equivalent for lists. Many computer languages you would require the use of for loops and other different types of iterative control in order to access or manipulate specific elements within a list. Here, we'll learn how to use the apply function for element-wise operations on a list. The apply function is great because it will specify if the object return is a vector or a list. We can get very specific with that, and it's also much faster than the use of loops. It performs things similar in a way to vector operations, not quite as fast, but still much faster than loops. For this week, we'll have one graded assignment. That will be graded discussion 5. Graded discussion 5 will be similar to graded discussions 1 through 4 in that you'll be having 3 questions assigned to you. You'll be responding to those prompts in a 3 to 5 sentence response, and then you'll be responding to 2 of the responses from your peers in a meaningful fashion. That will get you 20 points. As always, we'll also have the questions and answers 5 that will be available for extra credit, so long as the contributions to that questions and answers forum are valuable and helpful to your peers. This week, we'll also have exercises. These exercises will be plenty, And the way that we will access the exercises will be slightly different than the way that exercises have been given in the past. The exercise will be completely accessible through GitHub in that repository that you have been using, and that you forked and cloned the repository for the other exercises and labs within the assignment. Within this, we'll have two chapters, Chapter 7 and Chapter 8. Chapter 7 will have 3 exercises, and Chapter 8 will have 2 exercises. All of these exercises will be fundamental to your ability to learn and understand how R is working. Although some of these things may seem simple, they're actually quite complicated and actually a lot different than other computer languages operate with. So it's paramount for your understanding to be able to master these concepts before we move to more complex data variables for data manipulation and for visualizations. Thank you, and as always, I'm available via email, phone, or Zoom. If you'd like to set up a Zoom meeting, I'm available on Wednesdays from 9 in the morning to 11 in the morning. Thank you, and happy learning.